Our webinar in just a moment. We'll be getting underway in just a couple of moments, so hang with us here. And if you're just joining us right now, we are going to have our webinar, Moving Beyond Cinco de Mayo, Latino Professionals Who Are Breaking the Mold, will begin very shortly. We'll give just another moment here for people to log in. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Garrett Sheehan. I am the President and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and also the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce. Today, our topic, Moving Beyond Cinco de Mayo, Latino Professionals Who Are Breaking the Mold. And we are ready to get started. And we have a great panel lined up for you this morning. Before we do so, though, we want to thank all of the supporters that we have here at the Chamber, including our premier investors, our key investors, and our principal investors who allow us to do the things that we are able to do here at the Chamber. These companies support us year round and allow us to put on programming like today's. As I said, we have a very strong panel and we're able to bring programs like this to you because of our Diversity and Inclusion Council, which is presented by C&H Insurance. So this morning to join us and do a welcome is Cecil Austin. Cecil is the co-chair of the Diversity Inclusion Council and also the managing partner of CH Insurance. Cecil.
Thanks, Garrett. As Garrett said, my name is Cecil Austin. I'm the owner of C&H Insurance and co-chair of the Diversity Inclusion Council. I just wanted to take the time to thank everyone who's participating on today's event. For everyone that's on the panel and everyone that's taking time out to listen to this discussion and participate with any questions. I would encourage everyone who is on today's webinar to reach out to the Chamber and find out how you can become part of the Diversity Inclusion Council so we can continue to put on great discussions like we're going to have today. I'll pass it back to you, Garrett, and thanks.
Great, thanks a lot, Cecil. Thank you for leading the council with Jean Christensen and also for your support of the council and the programming that we do here at the Chamber. So we are ready to get to our panel, and I'm pleased to be able to welcome in Jenny Medina Morris. She's the Managing Director of Omniculture Communications. And Jenny, thanks a lot for coming to us with this idea, this concept of putting together this webinar. And I'm going to hand things over to you to introduce the panel.
Well, thanks to the Chamber of Commerce for partnering up with Omniculture Communications and let your business community explore the diversity of Greater New Haven. I think breaking the stereotype and topics related to the Latino culture are for Cinco de Mayo or October during the Spanish Heritage Month. Well, our panel will share their stories on how they have overcome their cultural assumptions during their careers and running their own successful businesses. We have today Angelica Toruno. She's born in Connecticut, descendant from a Peruvian and Nicaraguan family. She's a millennial journalist, breaking the mold on the local TV scene by hosting the only Spanish network, the only Spanish segment, Que Pasa, on Channel 8. She's also a senior news producer. She began her career in Miami, where she got her master in journalism and media management, working also for the local Miami NBC, Telemundo, and CBS networks. We also have Arturo Franco Camacho. He's from Mexico. He's a veteran of Connecticut cuisine whose impressive experience covered from being executive chef for Queen Elizabeth and Princess Diana at the prestigious QE2 to opening several of his own successful restaurants. Currently, his partner and executive chef at Camacho Garage, Geronimo Tequila Bar, and Shell and Bones Oyster Bar. Arturo has broken the tradition of Latin cuisine by including ingredients from around the world into his Latino recipes. He graduated from the Culinary Institute of America, and his cuisine has been recognized as excellent in the New York Times and on the Food Network, Food Nations with Bobby Flay. We also have here today Alisa Balwens Mercado. She classically trained ballet, tap, jazz dancer, studied with Gloria Jean's dance company, home of the World Tap Dance Champions for over 16 years. In 2000, Alisa began her career as a Latin dance instructor at Southern Connecticut State University, inspiring her to open Alisa House of Salsa, positioning her brand as the leading salsa studio in New Haven. For more than 20 years, she has been broken the stereotype by showing that you don't have to be Latino to be salsero and dance salsa. Alisa's innovative spirit also took her to open Rhythm Brewing Company in 2018, being the first Black woman brewer in the state. Alisa is a perfect example of intercultural integration. Also in the panel, we have Rick Omonte. He's from Peru. He's in the music business. He founded Shaki Presents, a music promotion company, booking over 400 shows in the 90s. As a promoter, he's also well known for his unique music taste, bringing international indie artists to local venues. From Africa to Caribbean, Rick created a compilation of Peruvian folk music from the Andes, Puro Taita Shanti. He has been a selector at DC Favorite Party Ritmos Raros. The New Haven Independent has described him as a musical polyglot, and he has been featured several times for promoting worldwide indie music, breaking the traditional Latino beat stereotype in the music business. And we have Norma Rodriguez Reyes from Puerto Rico. She has made her way to become the leader in the Spanish media. She's the founder and the president of the La Voz Hispana de Connecticut, the largest Spanish language newspaper in the state. Norma has broken the Hispanic media industry by making La Voz more than a newspaper, but a multimedia house that serves the Latino community across platforms. Norma is a member of the State of Connecticut, Latino and Puerto Rican Affairs Commission. She's one of the boards of directors of the Spanish American Merchants Association and chairs the online journalist project in New Haven. Welcome everyone, and now we are going to have first Angelica.
Hi everyone, I'm Angelica Toruno, and I am a producer and a digital reporter at WTNH News 8 here in New Haven. That's where our station is. And I guess I'll go with where I started. I went to the University of Miami to get my master's in journalism. And there I was able to work with NBC6 and Telemundo, as well as CBS 4, getting a grasp for the news industry in one of the biggest, if not the one and only city within the nation that is largely Latino. But here in Connecticut, we are also a huge Latino community. And so I decided to come back home. While I was at NBC6, I ended up, the duopoly, I ended up being with Telemundo too. And there they have an entertainment segment that show that was Six in the Mix. And so I put a spin on it and I said, Six in the Mix Edición Español, editions in Spanish. And there I did entertainment stories that we would do in English and Spanish. The irony was that they didn't think I would speak fluent Spanish there because I was a UM student. And it's not so common for a millennial born here with parents that are Latino to be so fluent. I have a neutral Spanish accent. I don't have an accent that would be correlated to any country. You wouldn't tell particularly where my parents are from. So they were surprised. Then what you would usually see in a news industry is someone who does speak Spanish, someone who looks like me, who is Latino, would initially be the type to be looked at by Telemundo or Univision, and they would want a reporter like myself. I came to Connecticut, and that is where I started talking to or working with WTNH, and I was able to, on a wing, my news director saw what I did at NBC6, and we ended up putting together Que Pasa. He told me, let's do this. There's such a big Latino community in Connecticut. What do you think about doing a segment? And we could start it off digitally, doing stories that are trending, the top stories. I work an unconventional schedule, but for news, it's normal. I work from midnight till 8 a.m. So afterwards, after I produce my 5 a.m. show or the 4 a.m. show and I'm done, I translate the top stories. And then at 8 a.m., I film the stories that I think are important for Spanish viewers to know in Spanish. So we put together the logo, the sound, and everything like that. That was when, oddly enough, I was able to speak Spanish on an English network, which is rare. And this is the first that it's happened. And it's been really fulfilling to be able to tell stories, to highlight stories that are Latino based in a native language for Latinos. And it's the first of its kind. So it got sponsored. I do it every morning. It goes on all our social media platforms and on WTNH's website. Then I was able to do stories such as COVID. The Latino community had a hard time getting people vaccinated within the minority communities. And so highlighting that and letting Hispanics know that we are the least percentage getting vaccinated, and making a story on that so that they were informed in their native language. And that's the purpose of Que Pasa, breaking the molds in that kind of way. And I think the way that now we move forward in my news industry would be to be able to tell the Latino stories in English for not the Latino community, for the English speaking community who needs to know more about the Latino community and not the stereotypes that we fall into. And that's kind of where I see it moving forward. And I aim to do that. So that's what I have to say.
Okay. All right, and Jenny, who are you going to introduce next?
Oh, the next one is Arturo Franco Camacho.
Right. I think we've had a little trouble getting him on. We'll keep working on that.
Okay, so let's go with the next. I will be Alisa. Hola, Alisa.
Hola, how are you? Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to the Chamber this morning, and Jenny, Tamika, all of your efforts for putting this together to open up this conversation. And I will tell you, I'm coming on this panel today wearing two hats, or what I shall say, two shoes. So I will have on my salsa shoes and I will have on my brewing boots. Just a little about me. My name is Alisa Balwens Mercado. I am the owner and dance director of Alisa's House of Salsa. We just celebrated 20 years last year at the House of Salsa, and we're very excited for a couple of reasons. We were able to bring Latin dancing to the state of Connecticut in different ways, and to diversify in a culture through music and dance. And so 20 years, we don't take that lightly here. We've connected with amazing people throughout 2 decades that have really allowed us to bring our dancing and our music into their hearts and their souls. And for the next 20 years, we know we will be around, hopefully, well, we know, making sure that more people are dancing. Just recently, I opened a brewery, actually a beer brand, and that has been an amazing journey. We specialize in lagers, just normal, regular beer, and we are excited that the rhythm journey, and that's why we called it rhythm. It's because whatever rhythm you have in life, whatever rhythm you're going for, what molds you're breaking, what glass ceilings you're busting down, whatever doors you're knocking on, we tell people, whether it's through music or beer, it's to make sure that you are finding your rhythm in life. So I've always set out on a mission as a salsa instructor or a person that has really appreciated the Latin culture, to expand and extend what you learn in your heart, body, and soul to those that are out there in your community. But I will tell you, when you bring salsa dancing to Westport and Greenwich, and then you bring it right here into these kids in the city of New Haven, it's a wonderful thing how you can see how dancing, music, and one culture is so connective to everyone. And so today, I'm excited to share my story with my salsa journey and my rhythm beer journey, but most important, how we have to break those barriers. We have to go beyond the scope of what people see on the surface. And that is, and Jenny, in the introduction, you don't have to be Latino to, even though I believe after 20 years, I am completely honorary. And every time I go to Puerto Rico, I go to Loisa because that's where I feel my internal salsa Latin roots coming through. But it's just a beautiful, wonderful thing to be able to join in a culture. And again, like you said, it's beyond Cinco de Mayo, where there's so many layers to what all of these wonderful panelists have done in their careers. And they should be celebrated throughout the year and not just on a few days or in just 1 month. And so with that said, thank you again so much for the introduction, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Alisa. So the next one we have Ricky Omonte. Hi, Ricky.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you. My name is Rick Omonte. A lot of people call me Shaki. Shaki Presents is a production company that I started about 20 years ago. Under the umbrella of Shaki Presents, I'm a concert organizer. I program a lot of events at different venues around the New Haven area. I'm a DJ. I've had a regular radio program on WPKN 89.5 in Bridgeport for some years now. I DJ'd in Old San Juan, Washington, D.C., the tri-state area, different concerts locally around town. I'm also a musician, a bass player. Music is in my blood, in my veins. I tour almost every year. Pandemic hit, didn't do a tour then, but music is my life. Under the Shaki Presents moniker, my specialty is booking international music and bringing it to our humble doorstep here in New Haven. It's my goal to sort of bring a global community to New Haven and highlight, of course, Latino culture, because I am Peruvian. And so, booking a band from Africa, a group from the jungle of Peru, is a tremendous amount of work. You work months in advance. And there's some obvious things that come with that sort of work. There's visas, there's immigration, all the things that you would imagine. Then there's some things that you maybe wouldn't imagine, simple things like, for example, if I book a band from the jungles of Peru to play New Haven, the odds that the money that I'll be able to pay them to play, it's not really going to cover the airfare for 8 musicians, the visas, the lawyers. So my job isn't just to get a show for this group in New Haven. I'm also networking. So Los Mirlos is a great example. I brought this band from the jungle of Peru. The goal was to have a show in New Haven, but to have the show in New Haven, I had to get them a show in Cleveland. I had to get them a show in Massachusetts. I had to reach within my network and have my network get them shows in Pennsylvania and Virginia, so that one show turns into 14 shows. Now the band can cover the cost of airfare. Now the band can cover the flight, the immigration costs, the lawyer costs, and things like that. Even come home with a little bit of money. And so, you know, being a musician, being a DJ, I have big ears. You know, you can't see in the video maybe, but my job gives me big ears, and I'm able to hear. My specialty is to hear these common threads I hear throughout culture with music specifically. So maybe when you hear a song by Beyonce, everybody says, oh, this is a very popular song. I don't hear that song. I hear the sample. I hear the Puerto Rican rock band she sampled. When you hear Drake singing a song, everybody loves the chorus. I hear the Arabic song that Drake is quoting because I'm listening to so much music. So it gives me a really sort of amazing advantage point. And so when we talk about moving beyond stereotypes, beyond the Latinx stereotypes, for me, that often means people have this like preconceived notion as to what Latino or Latinx means, you know, and even almost worse than that, people have this sort of preconceived notion as to what it doesn't mean, which is even almost more harmful, you know, and then these preconceived notions sort of inform an opinion. And so what I'm getting at is sometimes I'll meet a person and they'll say like, oh, you know, I don't listen to Latin music. I don't like Latin music. And I'll say, what do you mean? What does that mean? Have you heard it? What are you talking about? And then you kind of dig a little deeper and you realize, well, this person actually doesn't really know. They're kind of uninformed and they're based something on sort of some preconceived notion. So it's sort of my job to kind of say to somebody, you know what? I bet you if you heard this, you would like it. And I can even take it a step further and say, I bet you already like this. I bet you already know this. And I do that by pulling things, you know, that people use all the time and they don't realize are, you know, from other cultures. So one thing I always bring up is, and I've mentioned this before, the word puma. The word puma is Quechua. It comes from the Inca Empire, okay? But every day people walk around, they wear their pumas, their tracksuits and their sneakers. We talk about the jungle, we talk about the wonderful animal that is the puma, but people don't realize when they say that word, they're speaking Quechua. They're speaking a language that comes from an entire different country, a different culture. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of times as a promoter, as a music person, the stereotypes that I'm trying to move beyond are almost more like preconceived notions. It's my job to kind of say to you, you know what? I bet you like this. I bet you will identify this. And because music, like food and dance and all these kind of media, there's so many common threads that you start to find people listen and they say, you know, I do relate to this culture and I actually like this. And you know what? I had Latin food before and well, I didn't realize that was a Latin song. I do like it. And so for me, when we say moving beyond the stereotypes, that's something that speaks really close to me as a promoter and as a DJ and musician. And so that's my mission with music, to kind of bring that global community and make people realize they're a part of it already. Thanks for inviting me, by the way.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
So the next one we have Norma. Hola, Norma.
Hola.
Norma, you're muted.
Yeah. I guess she was having some technical issues.
Got it. How about now? Everything okay?
Yes.
All right. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, especially the diversity part of the Greater New Haven Chamber, long overdue. I know they've been doing it for a few years already, but I'm glad that, you know, there's been inclusion and the chamber every day gets more and more diverse so that it could represent the state of Connecticut. Connecticut, I'm going to speak to you today about college, politics, and publishing. I came here when I was 5 years old from Puerto Rico at a time when it was not fashionable to be a Latina. There were here I am in Walsh School in New Haven, public school on Congress Avenue. And I come into the classroom and absolutely no Hispanics there. No teacher, no counselor, no one absolutely is Spanish, and I don't speak English. And there was no bilingual education. So here I am put into a classroom, completely immersed. So for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I basically didn't really know what was going on. I'm in a classroom, I'm learning, okay, but I'm not being taken out so that they can teach me, you know, translate for me. But then as the time went by, the years went by, I learned how to speak English. And then the new Hispanics that would arrive, they would put them next to me, okay, or next to my sisters, because I come from a very large family, and we would be their translators. So needless to say that growing up, even in high school, and I graduated from Richard C. Lee High School, we finally had a Hispanic teacher, okay? So we didn't learn anything about the Latino culture, about anything. So the last thing that I wanted to do was be Hispanic, Puerto Rican, because at that time, the at least 99.9% of the Puerto Ricans in New Haven, Connecticut were predominantly Puerto Rican. I've always envied Hartford, Bridgeport, Springfield, Massachusetts, because they had a very large Puerto Rican community and a lot of educated, and they were able to, you know, work with each other. When I went away to Yukon, okay, and it was a time when good girls did not go away, because I grew up not only in a subculture being Puerto Rican, but I also grew up in a religion that did not promote higher education. They wanted you to be either a minister or be a missionary. That was what they were training you to do. The last thing that I wanted to do was be a missionary or a preacher. So good girls did not go away to college, but I wanted to show them that I could go away to college because I wanted to be a role model, come back home, okay? And the way that Norma made it, then they could make it too. When I was at Yukon, I was embarrassed to say my last name because I did not want anyone to know that I was Puerto Rican. I wanted them to know that I was an American. But as soon as you said your last name, and remember, back then, they couldn't even pronounce Rodriguez. And today, Rodriguez is a household name, thanks to A-Rod. A-Rod, you see, not Alex Rodriguez. The Americans call him A-Rod. As a matter of fact, that was my name. When people used to ask me my name and I didn't want them to know that I was Hispanic, I would say Norma Rod, okay? And, you know, that is breaking serious barriers because we had to take and educate the land of steady habits, which is what Connecticut has been described as. Because many of the folks from Connecticut, they don't care what's going on in the city, let alone in New York or in any other country. All they care about is what's happening in their own backyard. So I go to Yukon and I remember my professors saying to me, Norma, keep your Spanish because someday you're going to need it. And I used to say inside mentally, obviously I couldn't say it so they could hear me because they might expel me or, you know, give me an F. That's the last thing you want. So I would say, yeah, right. What am I going to need Spanish for? Okay. Because all my world, except the church and my family, was all mainstream. And then when I graduate from UConn, I become the city's largest, the director of the largest senior center, and they were all Italian, Irish, and Polish. So there, I didn't even practice my Spanish at all either, okay? So what's very interesting, so I learned a lot about who I wanted to be like when I got to be their age, because these seniors taught me a lot about life. And I had an opportunity to travel with them to many foreign countries. And I love to travel because by traveling all those other foreign countries, you can then understand what the United States is made up of, okay? Because it's every single country is here in the United States, the only country in the world that has the diversity that the United States has. So my world of politics. As soon as I graduated from UConn, my next door neighbor, she was involved in politics. And it was like when the Latinos were now getting involved in politics and formalized being elected politics. And I remember Steve Mednick, who was running for city town clerk, he said to me, Norma, can you help me out? And I said, well, what do I need to do? He says, you need to go door to door and ask people to vote for me for city town clerk. I didn't know what the heck city town clerk was. So I go and I check it out. They tell me what it is, okay? And then I said, yes, of course, I'll do that because I love to drink people's coffee. So that was my beginning into the world of politics. From that, my husband got elected and he was the president of the Board of Alders. And, you know, at that time, the Latino men were the ones who were involved in politics. It was the women were supposed to stay home and make sure that they're taken care of, right? Which I didn't mind doing. I have no problem doing that. But then I said, figure, wait a minute, I can be good at this too. And they saw my skills and my abilities. And I remember I was asked by the town chair at that time, the late Vinnie Morrow, if I wanted to be state central committee woman. And I said, Vinny, I'm not interested in any of that stuff. So then he said, well, Norma, I'm thinking about running for state chair and I'm going to need your vote. I said, okay, Vinny, if that's the reason, then I'll do it. And that's how I became the first Latina state central committee woman. I also became the first Latina to be an electoral vote for President Clinton. I became the chair of the Connecticut Hispanic Democratic Caucus, which is a statewide organization made up of all the Latino elected officials and leaders and throughout the state. And we organize and our mission is to get more Latinos elected in politics. And definitely this time around, we're hoping that we get a Latino or Latina constitutional officer, because it's long overdue. And after politics, a girl that didn't even want to speak Spanish and let anyone know that she was Hispanic was asked by the founder. Abelardo King is the founder of La Voz Hispana, which means the Hispanic voice, statewide largest Spanish language newspaper, okay? In there, I learned that sometimes consorting with the enemy can be educationally and financially beneficial. Okay? Your enemy today can be your best friend tomorrow. And your best friend today can be your worst enemy tomorrow. So here I am in the publishing world. Paul Bass, who's the publisher of online journalism, who's the publisher of the New Haven Independent. But prior to him being publisher of the New Haven Independent, he was also very well known, and I always loved to read his stories. He used to write for The Advocate, the New Haven Advocate. So Paul Bass wrote an article about the Latino leadership in Fairhaven. And he did not mention our political friends, elected officials. He did not mention them as leaders of Fairhaven. So the Latino community, we all got very upset. We took a busload to the New Haven Advocate, which at that time was in the Long Wharf, okay? And we go and demonstrate against the Advocate, okay? So I figure Paul Bass comes down to listen to all the demonstrators, but they were all doing it all in Spanish. So I'm saying, wait a minute, Paul Bass has the audacity to come here and listen to what people are saying about him, then he needs to understand what they're saying. So I get next to him. I'm consorting with the enemy, okay? I get next to him to translate for him. So what ends up happening? You know, everybody says what you got to say about how the Advocate, that article is not just to the Latino community, okay? But then they start chanting, "Te conozco bacalao, aunque venga disfrazado." And you know, this is the first time I'm kind of dealing with this stuff. because I don't really know the intricate details of the Latino culture, okay? Because I didn't grow up in the intricate details of the Latino culture. So I began to say, I know you codfish, although you come disguised, okay? But now they go into overkill. So I go to the security and I tell the security guard, listen, Paul Bass has an emergency phone call upstairs. So the security guard goes and tells him that he has an emergency phone call. And Paul goes upstairs. Obviously, there's no phone call, right? So he goes and tells the security guard, no, he said, that Norma, that lady over there, she told me to tell you that. Then Paul realized that I was trying to get him out of, in a nice way, from the chanting and all that stuff that's going on. Later on, thank God that I'm the one who we used to get mail over the regular mail, okay? Because nowadays, this young generation doesn't understand anything about letters, you know? So I get a thank you letter, okay? And it's from Paul Bass. Thank God that I'm the one who opened it, because if my husband would have saw it, he says, oh my God, this one is definitely consorting with the enemy. So that has been my world of politics, college, and publishing. Thank you so
Norma.
much.
Thank you. It was a very nice story, and I'm definitely, you are a role model. Yes. Now we have Franco. Hola, Arturo. Franco Camacho is here.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas.
Yes.
Thank you for all your patience. How are you?
Good.
So tell me, should I introduce
Yes, we already introduced yourself, and now we just would like to hear your story about how you overcome some cultural assumptions that we all have during our careers, and well, in your case, running your own business.
I think that is, I think we all agree that we'll take like half a day to all describe what we went through or what we've been learning through all these times to express our Latinaness or roots, I would say. But let me start how I got to this country. I'm from Mexico. I grew up in Tijuana, in a very big, dangerous city for too many people, but had a very beautiful things. And I grew up in a really good centralized area of Tijuana. I'm one of 11 kids. I had the fortune to have a very committed mother, I would say, like most Latins, more Latinos had a very strong connection with their mothers, I would say, and everyone else. I'm sure you all agree with me. And she pushed us to achieve the best we could with what we had. So I started very young and, visualizing where I wanted to be or who I wanted to go and live and live my best that I could, not knowing that that would take me to United States eventually. I was a dentist technician in Mexico. I left the career becoming a dentist. And I traded to pursue my own and find my own identity. I would say I started washing dishes when I first came in, as saying as many Latinos, right, that we come with looking for an opportunity, not necessarily just to discover who you are, but a lot of times it's basic necessities to be fulfilled. As the time went on, I knew that it was in me to become or pursue the cooking world. So when I got into big kitchens and professional kitchens, I felt that it was my time to pursue that. So I moved around the United States from San Diego to Hawaii to Chicago, worked in some companies that saw the potential I had, and they opened doors for me. I ended up in the Culinary Institute of America and did my schooling there. Then I moved to Manhattan, moved to Spain, and I had the opportunity to travel around Europe, pursuing my chefing career. With your Latino attitude, I broke a lot of barriers in also in Europe, because in Europe, as Latino, you are seen a little different too. You know, they don't see you as a they just give you a name. They don't look at you like you come from Mexico, you come from Peru, or you come from Puerto Rico. You are Sudaca in Spain. You're not, which is in many ways is not a good thing, but I never felt more empowered to I would say to represent, you know, my Latino roots, in this case, my Mexican heritage. I'm a product of a grandmother that she was from Cuba, and then my grandparents moved to Mexico, and from there the whole gene is spread out, I would say. But in Europe, I was very proud. I was the only American trained chef and the only Latino on board the Queen Elizabeth II, which is one of the luxurious passenger ships. And I had the fortune to go around the world, and with that attitude, got me to the top ranks of chef de cuisine and ran my own restaurants there. And that definitely taught me a great deal of how the world works and what it means to be in a world of that could have not borders. And I'm sure we all agree here that we can have boundaries, but we cannot create walls that will prevent us to evolve. I always said, you know, you can only evolve by mixing ideas, mixing backgrounds, and why not? Mixing genes makes us all better. But then brought me back to the United States and start working in some projects. My own restaurant. I opened my first restaurant in Stanford, and it was very French, very European style. But then one day I said, you know, I was in Stanford and I was visit New Haven, and I said, why not have something that is nothing has been done here. No one has put together a concept that represents Latinos. So in a gourmet way where people can come and celebrate, or hospitality, and that's, I think that was the word that I wanted to represent, was celebration. How can we celebrate diversity in a restaurant that gives you all that and they offers all that? So the creation of Roomba in a little basement, that was my first crazy idea, I would say. But because people ask me, why you want to open a restaurant in the basement? I said, well, no one knows the concept. You might as well open whatever it is, and if it's good, people will come. I had the fortune to study in Switzerland hotel management when I was traveling, and it was this place in an alley in a basement that was known for the good cheese fondue. And I always remember when I walked into that alley and I saw that space, I said, that's gonna be the place. And with the help of my ex-wife, we put together the concept. But it was for me to celebrate and to tell the world that it was Latino food wasn't just fried plantains and rice and beans. There was so many other things that makes a food very unique, especially the combination of of 500-600 years of trade and culture from around the world, especially from the Africas and the European countries, I would say. You know, it was a great time to do it. It was the Latino way, Ricky Martin and all that stuff was going on, and I said, this is the right time to do it. You know, it's nothing better to say that I mean, it's nothing, and we all agree that sometimes things happen at the right time. So Roomba it happened in the right time, and it was just a hit. You know, people still remind, in New Haven that, or people know me as Mr. Roomba, but not really like my real name. But that is my story in New Haven. But when I saw New Haven, I thought I could do that there because I saw the potential, the diversity, the ethnic cuisine was no longer ethnic. It was more a new way to see and taste food and celebrate life. So saying that, that's a little brief part of my history here in Connecticut, but it never stops. New Haven never stops to wow me and to motivate me to do more things in the city because it's constantly evolving and taking a risk. And I think all the panelists right here, you guys doing that, taking that leap of faith, a little risk, and not worry about what people would say, how they would put us, criticize us, or put us in the box, and that we have so much to offer as a community all together, and it's great to have a platform like it's New Haven. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being, to listen in this panel. Appreciate it. Any questions? I'm open for that.
Thank you, Arturo. Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jenny, for introducing everyone, and appreciate everyone on the panel sharing their stories. We're going to open things up to questions now. So if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll make sure we ask those. Maybe I'll start with Angelica, and I loved the stories that you're bringing through over at News 8 and WTNH. I'll start with you, and then open this question up to everyone. What are some of those stories that you really want to bring out to the rest of the community? As you mentioned, Angelica, it's not so much for the Latino community, it's for everyone else to better understand the Latino community. And I guess a little bit with a business focus, what are some of those stories that people should learn about?
I think especially where we find ourselves right now in post, for lack of a better term, post-pandemic. I know we're not fully there, but the state has reopened. A lot of businesses had to close or temporarily had to struggle through. I know New Haven did put in the effort, and the community came through to make sure that many of those didn't fall. But telling the stories that aren't just a shooting in New Haven or an unfortunate event of someone being killed. I think New Haven and a lot of these places that we are told are a big minority community, like Bridgeport, Stamford, even Hartford, we're always focusing on shootings, and they tend to always be, with a Latino last name, or it's always the way that something is worded. I think bringing out the stories of someone who is making it, someone who is breaking the mold of stereotypes, I think those are the stories that need to be told. I also think, for example, the Colombian protests, they were happening. It's an international story, but we have a huge Colombian community here in Connecticut. There was a vigil in Yale of Colombian students that are getting their masters, and they are away from home. And one of their friends, dear friends, was one of the people that went viral of a video of him getting shot and killed at the protests in Colombia. I'm sure that maybe one network within Connecticut probably covered that. I covered the vigil, I said it in Spanish, but I don't think it ever came out in English. The same way that we mourn for George Floyd, for all these other people that are being killed, I think the same way we need to mourn for Colombia, or, what's going on in the Middle East. The same way that we cover these international stories is the same way we need to treat South America or Central America or Mexico, because they are localized. They are in Connecticut. They do affect us, but there needs to be more people that are able to be in that community. I brought that point of view into the newsroom. When I first started in News 8, which was just a year and a half ago, I'm fairly new to the industry. I'm 25 years old, so I'm fairly new to the world. But I was one of 2 Latinas in the newsroom for the time period that I'm working. Since then, there was another Latina, so there's 3, and now there's been more. So with that, we bring in a point of view that kind of leads to more inclusion. It's not just, you know, Mayor Justin Elicker is going to say that about the summer reading challenge. He's going to be involved with the Latino community. He's going to tell these stories, and that's the way that we continue the narrative in a positive light.
Anyone else want to talk about stories that you think need to get out there and should be publicized and heard more from the entire business community? Oh, you're on mute, Norma.
Excuse me. Yeah, sorry about that. You know, I guess this is maybe a tangent of that, but I do kind of think, you know, when we talk about news and stories that should be brought to light, I kind of also think of that. I kind of apply that mentality to culture and art and music and stuff. And I do feel like there is kind of a tendency for mainstream outlets or for popular culture to kind of just constantly reflect on the super out, you know, we're going to talk about Latinx culture. Okay, let's talk about salsa. You know, there are classical composers, there are avant-garde musicians, there are scores, decades worth of experimental music coming out of South America. Some of the best rock music that came from the 70s literally came from Chile. People don't know it. And I kind of feel like there's always this separation of like, okay, we're going to play American music or popular music. Now we're going to play international music. And when you go to another country, you go to another, you know, you visit another culture or something, they're not really doing that. All of the music is being played at the same time. You're going to hear popular music right alongside what we would here in America consider to be international music. And I kind of think in a way that's sharing stories. Like I think the story that needs to be shared is that, you know what, maybe when you turn on the radio, mainstream radio, you should hear a cumbia next to a hip hop song. Maybe, and I think that in a way that is a way of sharing more stories, because when you hear these things alongside of each other, when you eat food from all different cultures, you start to taste the flavors, you start to hear and feel and taste the common thread. If you dance, I'm sure Alisa can tell us, if you dance a certain kind of rhythm from the Caribbean, but then you hear an African rhythm, you hear the same beats, you know, and it becomes a lot more relatable. And I think that those in and of itself tell a story, the story that, hey, Latinx culture is maybe not so different than American culture, European culture, when we kind of start to really analyze it. You know, I think as a musician or as a DJ, I hear these things all the time, and for me, it's really beautiful. I love to hear the common threads and things that seem far apart, you know, but I think it's pretty obvious, you know.
Thanks, Rick. Norma, I'm going to let you talk. We're running up a little bit on time, so if you can keep it tight, but I'll go right to Norma.
Okay. I think what would help a lot of our businesses is if they begin to embrace the diversity that exists out there with the Latino community. They invest, I think it's important for them to invest in branding, okay? Because you have branded already to the mainstream, but you cannot assume that these new arrivals will understand who you are or what you provide. And a lot of businesses do not have to close if they really accept the diversity, because we have the workforce. You know, you can hire a bilingual person so that then that bilingual person can come in and track the Latino and provide the services that it is that you give. So branding to the Latino community, because mind you, you know, the new Latinos that are coming here are not those that are not educated. You know, many of them come here already with college degrees and highly educated. That it's just that they haven't dominated the English language yet, but it's only a matter of time. So I think it would behoove the businesses to really reach out and brand to the Latino community and do an investment in all the different areas of communications.
Thanks, Norma. I'll make one last call for questions if anyone has questions, and I want to go back to Franco and Alisa as well, and just your thoughts on how we brought in this business community. We don't have separate business communities, that there is this more diversity and welcoming, and any thoughts you have on that, and then we'll close out with Jenny in just a moment.
Well, Garrett, I'm just going to piggyback off of what the panelists said, but I will tell you, 18 years ago, when I approached the city of New Haven, and not the city, but downtown restaurants and bars about doing Latin nights. Let me give everybody just a little history about Latin nights and why you hear Latin music and why you have Latin themed nights in your restaurants and bars. That's because 17 years ago, I went and pounded on every bar and restaurant's door and said, I'm gonna bring you a salsa night. I'm gonna bring you a Latin night. And a lot of the owners that were downtown that were not, Latino or African-American, they're go, well, what kind of, Alisa, okay, we know you, but you're doing a salsa night, a Latin night. What kind of people are gonna be coming to the restaurant? Or what kind of people are gonna be coming to my bars? And those were the conversations that I would get. And I'm like, I'm puzzled. I'm gonna bring you a crowd that whatever they look like, whatever the background, they love music and they love to dance. And if that's not good enough, then I can take my party and bring it someplace else. So when you break those type of stereotypes, but you make people accountable, that's the word. It's accountability for what you want to get money for people to come and eat in your places, but you don't have that opportunity for us to set up shop as like a Latin themed night. I was like, not on my watch. So I did this 17 years ago. And that's why there are a lot of bars and restaurants, when you walk down the streets in New Haven, in different areas, you hear Latin music playing, because I was not going to be pigeonholed as the house of salsa. I wasn't going to be, she's just going to bring Latin people and, whatever their thoughts of what, they were going to come in and to do in the bars and restaurants. So I've seen in 17 years, when you hold people accountable, because this D&I, this diversity and inclusion, is nothing new, honestly, to me. Because when you break stereotypes and when you're busting down doors, no, you're going to include me because I'm a salsa instructor. I have a brand, which I think is great. And so you're going to include all of what comes with that. White, Black, Latino, Asian, you name it. So I just have to let everybody know that this D&I has been going on, but we have to continue to break those barriers. So again, when I walk into places that I've salsa'd at or I've danced at, and I remember 15 years ago when this all just kind of first started, and now people have Latin nights all over. And guess what? It's so eclectic and it's so diverse, and people are coming in from the shoreline and people. So I think if we all have that mindset, I think we'll continue with like Norma said, and Arturo, Angelica, Rick, about breaking barriers and making people, accountable. And that's how people start enjoying different cultures. So yeah, it's been a great ride for me, but yeah, the mission and the journey has been going long on for 17 years.
Thanks,
and still trying to do, they won't let me retire. So I still have more work to do in the salsa community.
No, great points. You're reminding me of the salsa nights at the piano bar at the corner of Chapel and
absolutely
College right there. So great stuff. Franco, I'll give you one of the last words, and then we'll go to Jenny to close out.
Well, I think the education is very important. How I guess I'm gonna do an invitation to all of us to keep it educating ourselves and the community and how we really are, what we bring to the table, and it's a wealth of knowledge and history that it makes us very unique as a group. I think together we're stronger, and this panel says a lot. The the invitation for me is that you know, it's hard to break stereotypes. And when you have an accent, people automatically think you're a foreigner and put you in a neutral space when a neutral thing is, you know. But when they allow you to show them what you're all about through your art or through your authenticity, people embrace it right away. But it's how you educate or a community. You know, you have an immigrant comes and they don't speak English, and automatically they categorize them in this group and say, oh, I need a dishwasher, when could be an architect from another country. And that is the comes with education, and more so acceptance. I think the only way we're gonna, and I'm gonna close with this, the only way that we're gonna find ourselves respected, or respect comes from the acceptance or individuality and originality, and that will create a respect among ourselves. Acceptance, I think, is the word. And for that, I close my input here, and I appreciate all you guys and what all you guys do. I think that I always say, you know, it takes a village to get something done, and takes that leap of faith and that trust that we all sometimes just need to open the door.
Thanks, Franco. Great seeing you, and a past champion at the Big Taste, and we can't wait to have you back again in November. Let me hand it back to let me hand it back to Jenny. And Jenny, thanks for pulling this panel together, and you can give us our last thought for today.
Well, I would like to thank to the panel for sharing such amazing stories on how they have taken advantage of their cultural background to follow their passion, creating their graph in their own way, and keeping their businesses afloat during this pandemic. Businesses try to engage us today. They try to market us. Well, we are the largest minority in the US, but we are so different. And learning about the Latino culture, our differences and similarities help to avoid cultural misunderstanding. I hope everyone has learned a little bit about Latino culture today and get inspired to embrace diversity in your organizations. Follow-ups on our social media, and let's continue the conversation there. Thank you everyone for being here today.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And as everyone's leaving out, we'll just let you know we have chamber events coming up, another COVID vaccine part of our series, talking about the vaccine questions, your answers to your questions, and how you can get mobile clinic at your work site. And then also on June 15th, we have our regional real estate and construction forecast that's going to be virtual for the programming, but in person for the networking, starting at 4:30. You can learn more and register at our website. Hope everyone has a great day, great holiday weekend. If you want to watch this video again, you can go to our YouTube page as well. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a
Take
good
care. It was
day.
great.
Happy Memorial Day.
Bye-bye.